Julia Griffith is the founder of the Gem Academy based in the United Kingdom. She is used to work for the Gemological Association of Great Britain as an FGA and DGA. She's founder of the Gem Academy, and she specializes in synthetic or laboratory-grown diamond education. And so she interacts a lot with retailers, but also with consumers, with dealers on these issues. And so you bring quite an international perspective also to this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Julia.
Me. Yes.
And Christopher Zöttl, who was with us already last year. Christopher is a Munich local. You're a retailer. You have 2 retail stores. You sell both natural and synthetic diamonds in the German market. You're also very familiar with the American market because you have a base in Vegas and you attend the Vegas shows as well. And so we felt that given that both of you interact both with natural and synthetic diamonds, it was interesting and important to have this conversation today. As many things are happening, as you see at the show, there are vendors of natural diamonds, synthetic diamonds, or also in English we can call them laboratory grown or laboratory created diamonds here at the show.
Also, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Und Servus und Grüß Gott. So everyone can hear I'm a local. And it's great to be back to Inhorgenta.
Thank you, Christoph. I think it's also important to point out that there was a talk from the Natural Diamond Council. We have people here from the German Federation of Jewelers that we follow SIBJO regulations. So SIBJO regulations in English dictate that this material can be called synthetic diamonds, laboratory-grown diamonds, or laboratory-created diamonds. In German, the term will be synthetische Diamanten. And we're not here to talk all too much about terminology, but more about the reality of the trade, what is happening, and also what is happening at retail. So Christoph, thank you so much for joining us. And my first question would be, from your viewpoint, is the momentum behind synthetic diamonds still growing, or do you see signs of it tapering off in today's wholesale and retail market? What is the situation in Germany, and how does that compare to the US, which seems to have really been a driving force in bringing this no longer new material, but this material to market? What is your take on that?
So here last year when I came to Inhorgenta, I did a similar speech about, and I gave a little insight of how our own retail shops, how they are selling. And my prediction was going from 2024, January 2024, 10% lab-grown diamonds to maybe 25% lab-grown diamonds specifically for the German market. And within 1 year, we went to 60, 70% compared to natural. So it has been gone up.
In your retail store?
In my personal retail experience, yeah.
Okay.
And when I talk to US retailers I have a good relationships with, the ones especially in Los Angeles, where you say they have 80, 90% lab growns, are selling 80, 90% lab growns in their jewelry. They're more at the 80-ish mark, if you put it that way, but it's still pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the question of this discussion was also, is the hype fading or is it still gaining momentum? Do you see any more kind of potential for growth, or where do we stand in that evolution?
So I do think there is I don't know how it is specific for the US market, because I also hear people going back a little bit natural, but lab growns are here to stay. I don't think they're going to be going anywhere too fast. And like I said, we went from 10% to 60, 70% within 1 year. And I have it seen even going up a little more than going a little down when it came to lab-grown diamond sales in my personal store.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's important to note here, and that's why I'm glad that both of you are here, is that there's not one product that is better than the other. It really just is about correct disclosure, using the right terminology, and letting the client make an informed decision. And there are markets for both. So my question for you, Julia, would be, from your perspective, both as an educator and as a gemologist, and given that you interact with a lot of dealers, you're very active on social media as well, would you say that the market for laboratory-grown diamonds is continuing its upward trend? What's your take on this?
Oh, so I would say that yes, there is an upward trend. However, the hype aspect of it, certainly in the UK, from what I've noticed and from the people I speak to, and also just from hearing friends talk, I find that there's not such a hype anymore. It's not such this new thing, and have you heard about it? And oh my gosh, it's all this stuff and it's great and it's cheap. So that's calmed down. So although it still is popular, and also different countries, it seems to be increasing in popularity, like the figures you just said, Chris, are incredible, amazing. But in regards to, is it still on the upward trend? Certainly in the UK, I'd say it's leveling out. And also in some parts of the market, for example, bridal jewelry, there might be an ever so slight downward trend.
Okay, interesting. And Christoph, question for you, given that you have retail stores. I mean, we have a lot of people have these conversations. What is actually happening in your retail store? What kind of consumers are walking in and who is asking for what? Can you give us a bit more insight on, I'm not going to say profiling, but what is the situation actually looking like on the ground?
So just to give you a little background, my family is in mainly bridal, so wedding rings, engagement rings. So my main customer base is between 25 and 35, and this is now basically Gen Z, if you put it that way.
So their age, yeah.
That's the main age group. And so you have them actively coming in and say, listen, I'm looking for a lab-grown diamond. Yeah. So the way I handle it personally in my retail operation is I ask them what they're looking for, and if they don't actually physically say I'm looking for a lab-grown diamond, I'll go with natural. Yeah, that would be the first thing I go. But of course, down the road, if they're like saying, okay, I really love the 2 and the 3 carat items, and my budget is €3,000, well, that kind of like gives us the end of the discussion about what they're actually looking for, if you put it that way.
Could you give us an idea at retail, or be it in your shop or online, of what is the comparison of price of a finished jewelry product, a ring with a 3 carat stone compared to if it was natural, just to get an idea of budget as well? Is it possible to?
So depending on all the factors to foresee, but just to give you a little hint, if you buy a 1 carat lab-grown diamond in natural with a nice setting, let's say like that, 2.5 to 3K. In natural, at least double. Yeah. While in 2 carats, you're looking at 3 to 4K. While in natural, you're looking at 15K. Yeah. And of course, once you hit 3 and 4K, it goes like 5 times higher, if you put it that way, compared to
3 to 4 carats.
Yeah. Once you hit that size.
Yeah.
Now, someone buying a 1/2 carat natural and a 1/2 carat lab grown in a retail level, it won't make a big difference, if you put it that way.
Because there's the manufacturing price of the jewelry.
Correct. The base price of the jewelry piece plus the diamond. So they're maybe if they're buying a lab grown 1/2 carat compared to a natural 1/2 carat, €500, €1,000 difference. That's it. It's not going to be a big saving. So it's going to be more interesting in the larger sizes.
Okay. Please add something, Julia.
So I did quite a lot of data analysis when it comes to different price comparisons for natural versus lab grown. To be honest, most of my comparisons are for loose stones, so not in jewelry. But the price differences completely depends on size and the color and clarity as well. But the larger you go, particularly, let's say you're in the high colors, high clarity, the larger you go, the greater the difference between the price of the 2 items, down to about 1% of the price of a natural.
Okay.
Or even lower,
Wow.
especially when it gets to the 6, 7 carats and beyond. So a lab grown is just 1% of that price. Then if you come back down, like you said, down to 50 points or even all the way down to 20 points, that's when it's about 65% of the price of a natural comparison. So it literally is in between.
That's so interesting.
For a 1 carat, 1 carat DVS1 round brilliant, excellent cut, it's about 10%. No, it's not. I looked the other day, it's 4%.
So 4% of the
4%
price.
4% of the price at wholesale right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
At the wholesale level, it is the margins have going down and everything like that. So I totally agree with that. But just especially for the retailers here, if you go to a 5 carat natural in a nice jewelry setting, 200-300K.
Yes.
Yeah. So a 5 carat lab grown retail level, 5-6K. About.
Yes.
Yeah. Just about. Yeah. Not in full terms, but just to give you a perspective. So the guy looking for a larger diamond and who's not having the pockets to pay €200,000-300,000 out of it and just wants the big bling, the discussion will go towards lab grown diamonds, if you put it that way.
Yeah.
So Julia, is it fair to say that there are a lot of misconceptions and knowledge gaps on both sides of the debate around laboratory-grown diamonds, and how do you deal with that? I mean, what advice would you give both retailers, but also gemologists or wholesalers or trade shows or people on social media? Communication is quite challenging.
It can be, but like with everything, you know, the saying, knowledge is power. And also, if you hear something, you know, have the curiosity to always question it and be open-minded. So when it comes to my education, where you do hear a lot of misconceptions in the trade, I will go through from the very first step. I talk about production, everything, and I just build people up step by step so they have a really solid foundation so that they will then have the confidence to question if something doesn't sound quite right. Because there are quite a lot of misconceptions out there.
So ultimately, it's about giving the consumers the right information and then let the consumer decide for him or herself what they want to purchase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mainly teach people in our trade because, you know, consumers ask the questions, that's great, but I really want to empower the people in our trade, the jewelry professionals, our peers, to be able to have that confidence to know the answers to all these questions, because it can be intimidating.
Yeah. Thank you. And Christoph, what is the difference between, you know, different consumer segments? So younger versus older buyers, they walk into your shop. Are there trends that you're seeing? Has there been an evolution? How do they perceive both the products and perhaps even the value? I know that's a little bit of a difficult question, this perception of value, of rarity, but any thoughts on that?
So I don't want to use the term younger and older, not to offend anyone, but I would say, let's say the target group 50 plus, they still have a mindset to say a diamond, there's only a natural diamond almost, right? And of course the value, it comes with it, the uniqueness. But here too, I have seen that, you know, if you offer a tennis bracelet and it's a third of the price what a natural one be, and they're buying it for themselves, and it's not really some special occasion, here too they will tend them more to lab-grown diamonds. Now, when it comes to the younger generation, the Gen Z, I was just talking about coming to my store, doing the engagement rings, 25 to 35-year-olds, and they'll actively say, "Hey, I'm looking for a lab-grown diamond," and it's always a mix out of everything. It's not just the price that's a point. It's more the technology behind it, if you put it that way, and the sadly really good marketing lab-grown diamonds has done in the past that appeals to them.
Okay, very interesting. So people come in not just looking for value or price, but also they're looking at other factors. And that's fine.
Right.
Different consumers are looking for different things, right?
Yeah. And Julia said a really good thing is mostly the questions I don't get about, especially Target selling them, it's more about the misconceptions, right? I'll give you a hard example. I don't want to buy natural diamonds because it was involved child labor, right? And lab-grown diamonds are great because it doesn't involve child labor, and it's made with green energy and all that thing. And you're like sitting there like, you know, we have great campaigns, the Kimberley process. I have LLD here from the World Diamond Council. I have Raul Luca here from the Natural Diamond Council, and they give great stories about the natural diamonds. And then you educate your customers to say, okay, listen, this is how it really is. There's a Kimberley process. The diamonds come from regions where the people are paid fair, where mines are run by multinational companies, and lab-grown diamonds is not 100% sure yet how that all happens, if you put it that way. So the questions are more about misconceptions than they are about sure facts.
And so is that a frequent thing you get in your store, this kind of comment or this kind of statement or question?
Every second time.
Okay.
Every second time, I always make a little fun out of it. I ask them, hey, why are you looking for a lab-grown diamond? And then they'll give me exactly this answer, what we just talked about, and then you kind of help them and educate them about why natural diamonds are good for the people and the environment.
Okay, interesting. Julia, I mean, synthetic diamonds or laboratory-grown diamonds are often positioned as more ethical and eco-friendly. This is something we've seen on social media and communication. It's something that Christoph has also alluded to. From your perspective, I know it's a difficult question, but how accurate is this narrative? And again, it's not about saying this is good, this is bad, but just trying to contextualize it and give some of the people here in the audience a little bit more facts on this. Where do you see the biggest misconceptions? Do you have any advice for people kind of looking for more information on this, on what to tell their own consumers?
Well, yes, yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest misconception, you hit on it just there, is to do with ethics or sustainability. You just hit on it there as well. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions about synthetic diamonds, is just Well, there's lots of aspects to it, but one of them could be something like, synthetic diamonds are better for our environment because they're made, not mined. So even something like that, no mining involved in these products. And it's just like, oh, hold on. So there's, when it comes to my education that I give people about this, I say, well, no. Okay, there's no mining when you push the button to create a synthetic diamond, but what happens before? So at the very beginning, you've got all of the raw minerals that you have to, acquire before you can actually make anything. Because in one formation process, which is HPHT, we've got graphites, that derives from mining. You've got 3 metals, nickel, iron, and cobalt. And actually cobalt, which is mainly mined from the Congo, that has its own ethical considerations right now. You've also got a mineral called pyrophyllite that's in every single press. That's mainly mined from South Africa. So you've got all of these mined materials, which are often got from raw minerals, which then have to be processed, transferred, transported over to China probably, or wherever they're growing the HPHT. So there's actually a lot of mining, you just don't see it. It happens before that button is pushed in that factory. And the same can be said, kind of, but not as harshly, about CVD. So CVD is grown from gases, mainly hydrogen. So hydrogen is, 95% of industrial hydrogen is obtained from burning fossil fuels, so coal. You can get more sustainable hydrogen, but only a few people use that. They make their own. And then the other gas is methane. Again, so that's from natural gases. So there is mining, it's just before you see it. So that misconception of no mining is false. So the general narrative, apart from very select companies, that they're sustainable or even neutral for our planet is false.
And I think what's interesting, and maybe Guido Grohmann or Raluca could say something about this later on during our Q&A, is that there's also EU legislation which has come into force and which actually applies both to synthetic diamonds but also natural diamonds on eco claims that you can make, and that these need to be backed up by science. So it's not about bashing synthetic diamonds with what you said, it also applies to natural diamonds and how they kind of conceive their marketing. So again, I think it's just about giving information to customers that you can back up. And otherwise you are selling a product and you're making claims that you can back up. That's what's most important, and using the correct terminology.
Yeah. I would say, in this day and age, it's so hard to create a sustainable product, and no one would expect it to be sustainable. Yeah. But if you're marketing it as sustainable, then that needs to be, backed up, third-party approved, true.
I also seen, natural diamonds. We have all these initiatives from the Natural Diamond Council, Responsible Jewelry Council, Canada Mark, which we also had a good presentation here today, that shows us where the diamonds come from and how they're made and who's behind it. And I might be wrong, but I don't see that in the lab-grown field at all, unless you have an insight there.
Well, great point. It's harder. Nowadays, I find it so hard to trace where my laboratory-grown diamonds come from, because I have them for a teaching collection. And I could have told you for my older stones in my collection who I bought them from, and who I bought them from and who made them. But now, especially because I use a very popular third-party wholesaler, they don't disclose any of their wholesalers, and therefore I've got no idea on traceability.
So it's really hard on a retail level to say, okay, where do the lab-grown diamonds actually come from?
Yeah. If you don't know where they're from, you can't say.
Can you share a perspective as a retailer? Are there sources, I'm sure there are, but are there sources of laboratory-grown diamond wholesalers who can also share a story where you're not just selling a product, but you're selling more than that in a credible way that you can back up? Can you maybe...
So when... a lot of times couples come to me for a lab-grown diamond for their engagement ring, and they'll do the whole lab-grown diamond because they want a sustainable thing, and they heard about how green it is and how great it is and how clean it is, and then I give the rundown, just like you said, where the stuff comes from. That it comes from a lot of times from areas where you don't use clean energy, for instance, or anything like that. So that's really hard. So what I do, and this is how I do it a little bit with my competition, to be honest, is I get the rough from a grower in the US, and I have them cut in Texas. So in some way, I have made in the USA lab-grown diamonds. Yeah, and that's then something I really can tell the people. Okay, I know it's grown with clean energy. I know it's cut in the US where we have strict labor laws and everything like that. And this differentiates my lab-grown diamonds from all the other ones that are on the market.
And it's a maturing sector, so obviously there's differentiation that is still continuing to happen. So stories like that are one way of getting out of this kind of generic commodity situation. Just to come back to the retail perspective, how does pricing influence the decision between a laboratory-grown or synthetic diamond and a natural diamonds at retail? I mean, are consumers, do you think, in Germany, maybe, do you feel like in your retail environment, are they predominantly cost-driven, design-driven? Are there other factors at play, emotional, status-driven? Are big stones something that is more for the US market? Do people wear 5-carat stones in Germany? Just some thoughts on that.
So it's always a mix of everything, if you put it that way. It's not just price, it's not just emotion, it's or status. It's always something that comes between. Like I said before, guy come in saying, okay, I want a 3-carat diamond blingy ring, and my budget is 4,000. Yeah. So here you have, of course, again, you want something status, you want something blingy, and then of course the next person has a different drive. So it's never just one thing. Price is a big point. We're not allowed to forget that. So it always depends a lot on the customer, if you put it that way.
Yeah. And male, female kind of preferences? Is there, I think you once told me a story that you have some clients that work in the automobile industry and they're very interested in having more of a techie product, and so that would speak more to them. Do you see a difference there?
So I have my business here in Munich, close to a Bavarian car manufacturer. The one or other might know them. And here it's, of course, when the engineers come in, they say, oh, they're looking into that product because they like the technology behind it. Yeah. One thing you just said, male, female. It's really interesting that when I have couples, at least in my market, is that a lot of times the couples, the girls will say they want a lab-grown diamond. So that's something I have been following a lot in recent times, if you put it that way. That really fascinates me personally as well.
And where are they getting their information? It doesn't matter if it's now laboratory-grown or synthetic diamond or a natural diamond. Where are your consumers? They come in already with preconceived ideas. Where are they getting this information?
TikTok, Instagram, social media. Okay. That's the short answer. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, the lab-grown diamonds did excellent marketing the last couple of years. Excellent on social media, influencing the Gen Z to tell them this is a better, cleaner, nicer product. And in some ways, you do, as on a retail level, have to say, if the guy picks up a 2-carat lab-grown ring and it's a beautiful made ring and he's happy and he has tears in his eyes because he's going to give this as an engagement ring, and she requested that as well. For him, that is very real, if you put it that way. Yeah. So you always have to see both sides of the story. And for me as a retailer, at least in my operation, I can say, okay, if I get them from clean sources and I know where they're coming from, then I can stand behind the product.
Yeah. Thank you. Julia, synthetic diamond prices are coming down. CVD technology is advancing at a very rapid rate, still is. What do you predict for the next 5 to 10 years of the kind of synthetic diamond industry or diamond industry in general? And how much more mainstream is all this going to get?
Oh, that's a really big question. The next 5 to 10 years, even if I think, who knows? If only I did have a crystal ball. If we look at maybe the next few years, I think that potentially we might see certainly the larger synthetic diamonds come down in price because there's quite a lot of wiggle room in regards to the prices of those wholesale and also retail for them to come down. So that might be one thing that happens. We also might see a big peak. I think we're kind of at the center point of that peak of people who want to buy them and really, really get them. That might start tapering off, potentially, in my opinion, and then it moving more into fashion, potentially. So like you said as well about the tennis bracelets and things, one thing that I love the idea of for synthetic diamonds are the really kind of big pieces of jewelry, the pieces that I could never afford in natural diamonds, but I would love to actually still have a diamond material, that sparkle, that durability, like dangling from me everywhere. So I would say that that could be a place that it really expands. But generally speaking, I don't know. I think it could move out from the bridal industry, go more fashion or like high-end, fashion, jewelry. But yeah, I think, as Chris said earlier, I think even if not one more is made from this day onwards, for our industry, it's always going to be something we now have to look out for, that we have to test for, that we have to worry about and educate ourselves on from now and forever, because there's lots of them about. And where their value is so low, we have to protect ourselves.
Can I just ask you, as a retailer, it wasn't on my planned list of questions, but have you had a consumer who's come in and bought a synthetic diamond ring and then upgrades to a natural diamond ring later on? I mean, some people are arguing that it may be an entry point or an entryway for people to then later on, same as with pearls, to say you start off with freshwater cultured pearls, then you move into Akoya cultured pearls, and then later on South Sea. It's just kind of, as you have more budget, you might upgrade. Is that something you've seen, or is that not at all a kind of a scenario? Are there really two distinct sides and personas, or is there something hybrid that's possible?
So I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Let's put it that way, because like I told you, lab-grown diamond sales, let's say specifically for the German market, have just started really taking off, if you put it that way. And so, but I do hear those stories from colleagues in the US.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is something that happens, that they come back after a little while and say, okay, now I have a little more money, I want to upgrade this, or for sentimental reasons, do switch to natural diamond. So that is happening. And one thing I forgot to answer just before, and because Julia said the thing with blinging and everything like that, you asked me, are Germans buying 3, 4, 5 carat lab-grown diamonds? So for most here that are in the German retail market selling engagement rings, if you're in natural diamonds, a lot of times you might have noticed it's below 1 carat, to put it in simple terms, right? And that's why I also said last year when I came to Inhorgenta, okay, you know what, you might switch to lab-grown diamonds. But what I really noticed now is the budget stays the same, but the Germans do go to 2+ carats. Okay. And that really surprised me, because I always thought it's the Germans said, oh, we don't want to give the girls a large diamond, they want a small diamond, yeah? And in the end, they just didn't want to spend the money. That was the reason why they just stick with the smaller diamonds instead of going to larger sizes. Now in lab-grown, they're doing it, if you put it that way.
Interesting. And because you just spoke of your industry colleagues, I mean, it is a hot debate. I think everybody can agree that there's a lot of things have been written about this and that. But what advice would you give colleagues, or what are you hearing from other jewelry retailers in Germany or in Europe about this cannibalizing of sales or confusing consumers? Have you got any anecdotes or kind of stories or lessons that you learned that you can share on that?
So there's a big debate going on internally. Should I sell them? Should I not sell them? I get jewelers that tell me I want nothing to do with it, which I can understand on a sentimental level. But if we look at this from a retail level, if you say, let's just say 25% of your sales are lab grown, right? Which is easily doable today. And you don't do it, that's sending away every 4th customer, right? And can you afford as a retail shop to send away every 4th customer? And that doesn't mean you have to do everything, but if you say, okay, they want lab-grown diamonds, that's just the way it is, go the sustainable route. Look for a supplier that can give you green lab-grown diamonds, and then you can sell it with confidence, if you put it that way. So there is the whole debate, should I do it or should I not do it? But the fact is, if you don't do it, you're just going to leave it to the big online retailers, and who knows where all their things come from. Yeah. And one interesting thing I always want to add is, everyone asking about or says, lab-grown diamonds are green and better and everything like that, and I don't want something mined because of the human rights issue when it comes to natural diamonds. But no one asks me where the gold is from. Yeah. So it could be mined by, I don't know, whoever, but that's not the issue. It's always just about the gemstone.
Or when you buy a car, I don't think there's a lot of people when they buy cars to ask, where did all that metal come from?
Correct, yeah. So Julia said cobalt, right?
Yeah.
Congo and everything like that. Well,
iPhones, yeah.
Guess where the batteries in the Bavarian cars come from? They come from the same place that cobalt comes from, and no one asks the Bavarian car manufacturer, hey, who dug up that cobalt, if you put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, something that I end up having quite a lot of conversations about is actually how many things around us are mined. I think where it's so unrecognizable, all the metal in our phones and all sorts around us, we don't even think about its origins. However, gemstones particularly, that is such a real representation of the best of nature. So therefore, it's just a more obvious leap, I always thought, for people to go, okay, well, where's it from? You know, and all these questions about mining, whereas everything else has been transformed into something unrecognizable and so unnatural you wouldn't even think. But yeah, I end up telling a lot of people like, well, this is mined, you know, this is mined, this has been killed, you know, go on, you know. So you have to kind of give people a bit of a wake-up call, really.
And it's a conversation we had on Friday with Iris, is that sustainability is a journey. So it doesn't matter what the material is, there is always a development, you know, an evolution that is happening. And it's not saying about this is more sustainable than the other. It should be more about presenting the facts to people and then they can decide for themselves. But nothing's perfect. Yeah.
No, nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect.
And actually, speaking again on sustainability, because, you know, a lot of course, when it comes to synthetic diamonds, there's the discussion of energy used in production. So that's another aspect. Or greenhouse gas emissions, that's another aspect. That's true for almost all products that are produced and processed in some ways. And there are ways that synthetic diamond producers in some places are putting in efforts to use renewable energies or partly, or to offset greenhouse gas emissions, which isn't emitting the emissions completely, but it's at least trying to do something. So there are loads of people trying, but yeah, the general narrative should be questioned.
Okay, well, I think there may be some questions from the audience. So if there's questions, we'll be happy to take them. Anybody question or comment?
Please do. Deutsch, English, Bayerisch, wherever
we'll
you'd
take
like
them
to
all.
Hi, thank you for the talks. I'm from Paris. I just want to give, just an opinion. In French market, we had an increase of lab-grown diamonds 3 years ago. Now it's very decreasing, I'm sorry to say that, in terms of retail. What is important from my point of view is the product, the style of the product first, and after, as you said, everything what you talk. But I think the challenge is not that it's lab-grown or mineral, it's about the transmission, a legacy. Because when you want to sell a lab-grown diamond, there is no exchange rate. I think the point we have, the problem actually we have in my business in jewelry, is that you cannot evaluate the exchange rate. So it's not the problem of buying, it's the problem of reselling.
Do you want to share your perspective as a retailer? What happens if somebody comes into your store?
I love your approach, so thank you for that. You know, it's something I think about every day. But see, the thing is, no one comes to me with the intention to sell their engagement ring one of these days, right? Because they think she's going to keep it forever. That's the first thing. The next thing, if you sell honestly lab-grown diamonds, you tell them, listen, you buy today a TV for €3,000. How much do you get for that TV in 10 years? And they look at you and like, nothing. And I'm like, yeah, so that's how it is going to be with lab-grown diamonds. You're not buying a product that has something that will go up in value. But someone, you know, like I mentioned before, if you are a guy and you're spending 3, 4, 5K on a ring and you give it to her and she loves it, that's something very real for her too. Yeah, so I would never put down someone who bought a lab-grown diamond because you don't know what the intentions were and everything like that. So for me, I service the customer first. I make sure they get the design and everything they want. And please, you know, everyone here who might be in the retail or something like that and bashes lab-grown diamonds in some way, remember, we don't all deal with high-end or ultra-rich clients. Yeah, we deal with people who can spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 on a ring, and that's their limit, if you put it that way. So you have to also make sure you cater to this market just in an honest and sustainable way, if you put in that sense.
Yes, but example in France, we buy lab-grown diamond not only for bridal, but for fashion. You know what I mean?
Here too,
so when you resell, example, not for bridal, but for just transmission or auction. If you go to Christie's today and to Drouot, the main dilemma we have, actually, I talk about the industry, is about that. It's not about, for me, it's something that we have to combine. It's like fast fashion, fast jewelry, to Place Vendôme example, or big brand. We have to combine now. So lab-grown and natural. But the problem is just, it's not a problem, it's a dilemma of the future. just an open question. I don't have solution at all. But to tell you, example, a French brand that utilize the lab ground, I discussed with some of them. They think now to go more in the recycles precious stone because they have a problem in retail. Example, with department store in France, they don't sell a lot in the, when they explain, there is as you said, generation Z is very, the more involved in that, but the other, there is a problem. So she didn't see the increase of sale in the 3 years that she launched Lab Ground Diamond. Lab Ground Diamond brand. So thank you, just to give you a testimonial of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Weitere Fragen? Yeah.
Hello. Is it possible? I think the difference between lab-grown diamond and natural diamonds, it's very hard to see the difference. Every lab-grown tester, they still have a fault. They still don't take all the natural or lab-grown diamonds. It's very hard to determine which is lab-grown and which is the natural diamond. Do you see in the future that lab-grown diamond, it will still be harder to see the difference between natural and lab-grown diamonds?
Thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely. I think that it's always going to be hard. The reason is natural diamonds, you have the common type, and so most of them react a certain way, and it can be quite predictable, and it can be, used, and that's often what's used in these screeners, this common rule for natural diamonds. But there's always a few of those rare types. Yeah, we're talking, if you're into gemology, the type 1AAs and the type 1ABs, pure ones, that basically cross over with their results with laboratory-grown diamonds. And also, with some of the laboratory-grown diamonds, some of those where you've got so many creators and you've got different recipes or different methods slightly of making them, sometimes their results now cross over with natural. So to get a screener that does everything, I think, is impossible. There's always going to be these crossovers. You can do the general rule, but those crossovers are always going to mean that some stones get referred for further testing, and then you need to verify from there with more tests. So you can always identify natural diamonds and you can always identify synthetic diamonds, but some require more work and more equipment than others. And it's because of these ones that cross over in the middle, in my opinion. But you'd have a great opinion.
But I think we need to add that if you're in a scientific lab today and in future, it is no issue to separate a natural from a synthetic diamond. And I don't see that will change. That is not going to change. The challenge is that a lot of these screening instruments are very basic or using very basic principles so that they can be applied at a retail level or they can be portable. And so you need to be extremely careful also with some of these instruments that come at very low price points. And that's why the Natural Diamond Council also came up with the Assure program to try and test some of these instruments and really check, do they actually work and do they do what they want to do? So I would encourage you to visit the Natural Diamond Council website and the Assure program to see what instrument are you using, what is the false positive rate, what is the refer rate, what is it actually doing? And there's no magic pen that is going to tell you that. But from a scientific perspective, it is no problem to separate a natural from a synthetic diamond because they formed very, very differently. They do not, it doesn't matter if it's HPHD or CVD, they did not form like natural diamonds. It may not be visible to the visual eye if you just have it here in your hand, but it is scientifically very different. Any other questions?
We were really good.
Yeah,
fantastic.
There's a question actually behind there.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, great, thank you.
So thank you for a great talk. I wanted to talk about because you said the marketing of the lab-grown diamonds has been big and very successful. Because I've seen a lot of companies that are selling lab-grown as diamonds. Do you think that's okay, or because it's like diamonds and then very small text, lab grown? So that's the question, like, is that okay, or should it always be lab grown diamonds for sale?
Yeah, I think I want to hand over to just Guido Grohmann, who can give a perspective from a German perspective from Industry Association.
It's not a German perspective, it's an international perspective. And it's very easy to answer, but thank you for the question. When you call something a diamond, you always mean the natural diamond. If you sell something else, it's fine, but you have to describe it in a way that a customer understands it. In Germany, we usually say synthetic diamond, and that's what we tell people to say. But there's other names in other countries as well. And I think the main rule, for me, but that's just a personal opinion. For me, it's not so much about the name you use, but it has to be certain that if you're selling a diamond, it's a natural product. Full stop.
Can I, just to add a little bit, you mentioned about when people say in little writing, laboratory grown diamond, yeah? The SIBJO, or rather the Diamond Terminology Guideline, which was helped to create by SIBJO and 8 other organizations as well, they specify, I believe, that when marketing a synthetic diamond or laboratory grown diamond, that no word should have emphasis over another regarding font or size. So they specify that in the guidelines. So that would answer the question. People aren't meant to say laboratory grown diamond. They're not meant to do that. Yeah.
There's actually not much to add on because that was a perfect answer. But you said, is it okay? Personally, I don't think it's okay. Guido said a really good point. When I sell lab-grown diamonds in my business, as soon as we switch to, it's going to go for a lab-grown diamond, I also don't refer just the diamond as a diamond, a lab-grown diamond just as a diamond. So I will always say, so this lab-grown diamond has 1 carat FES, this lab-grown diamond has this is an oval lab-grown diamond. So I do keep the terminology up, just to make sure we're on the same pace here. And also my sales orders also have a field where I write in, hey, you're purchasing a lab-grown diamond. I give you all the information. You were addressed about the issue, about the value, about the devaluation, if you put it that way, and just make sure I'm legally also at that spot that they understand. Okay, not that they come afterwards and say, no, you sold me a natural, now I'm getting a lab grown. That's also a big issue, of course, in a legal sense.
But there is a lot of confusion, and there are a lot of examples of what you just mentioned of that happening. So I would invite you, check on social media, but also visit booths here at the fair. Check advertisements, keep on asking questions. I think what Julia rightly said is that it doesn't matter if you're a dealer or you're a client, you need to ask questions and people need to be able to provide answers. So that's key. Huh? Raluca?
Yes, I wanted to add that also if you walk around the halls, personally, I find it very confusing. I see just over there somebody calling laboratory grown diamonds as created diamonds. What's a created diamond? So I would also caution, as in industries, and also if you observe that and you know the guidelines that you need to abide by, make sure they're implemented. And another observation that I wanted to make globally in terms of perspective and marketing, I think one element through which laboratory grown diamonds have become so much part of the conversation is that you had a lot of organizations that decided to sell the stones. They all had exactly the same message. And we all know that if everyone comes behind a certain message, that will be heard so much more. So whatever rhetoric you want to push out, you talked about sustainability. A lot of people forget sustainability is not just carbon footprint. Sustainability is also social impact. Talk about the social impact, about the rest of the growth that you create with a lot of products, natural diamonds including 10 million livelihoods. That's an instrumental message that you could put out there in terms of why is it that you're proud to have natural gemstones and to be able to sell natural gemstones. So if more members of the industry, I would say, and retailers and anybody facing consumers would bring this message forward, it would be a message to be clearly understood versus a message that needs to be defended.
Any other questions or thoughts, Kommentare, Fragen? No, well, in that case, thank you very much. If you want to admire also some beautiful diamond jewelry, I would invite you to visit the exhibition called Timeless Brilliance on the symbolism of diamonds, natural diamonds since ancient times. Thank you very much for attending today's discussion, the talks, and there'll be more tomorrow. And thank you very much to Julia and
Thank
Christopher
you.
for
Thanks,
sharing your
everyone.
insights.
It was lovely being on here on stage with you both.
Likewise.
Laurent, thank you then for the invite. I really appreciate it. And I always have to say thank you to my wife because she's the one who's always behind me getting these things done and supporting me in this. Thank you.